separately, and I told them both, Dwane, about your statement that they shouldn't have retried Jody because of the 4 holdouts. There wasn't just one. And Tom Mesereau instrumentally agreed with you wholeheartedly, as did Richard Herman. Talk a little bit about that and what you were telling me, that just the fact that there were 4, that Mr. Martinez should have just let it be.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Killing people for killing people makes absolutely no sense, number one. Number two, the death penalty is more about vengeance than it is about justice. Okay? I mean, that's all it's about, is vengeance. Okay? And
Right.
there are angry people that want to see somebody die. Okay, well, the jury sat through the whole trial, every day of it. The prosecution won probably almost every day of that 6-month trial. I mean, the prosecution kicked the defense up one side and down the other in that trial, and it wasn't hard because Jody gave them tons of ammunition to do it with. Okay, and after all that, the best they could get is 8-4, for death penalty. So if there was one goofball holdout, then you retry it, But there was 4, okay, and there's so much prosecutorial misconduct coming out in that case right now that Judge Stevens should throw the death penalty out. I mean, there's going to be, they're going to keep it. This is the Appeal Lawyers Full Employment Act. I mean, this thing's going to be in the Court of Appeals for 20 years, and there's going to be hundreds of decisions come out of this thing.
And Susan, your thoughts? Mr. Tom Mesereau thought that the prosecutor might have had ego, getting autographs, whatnot. That's why he decided to retry it. In some people's opinion, Richard, also Mr. Herman. What is your thoughts on retrying Jody again? I think it's still in progress. Not getting the exposure of the first trial, obviously, but definitely still in trial. What's your thoughts?
Well, when you're thinking about just the cost of it all, I mean, I think that the state would really need to really consider, I think there's only, 2 people that ever been on 2 women ever on the death penalty there in Arizona. I mean, the statistics are against them getting the death penalty, number one. Number two is, and this is just my own personal opinion, and most people out there don't realize how much money it costs to keep somebody on death row versus just giving them life. For Jody, life is not going outside those bars and looking into the real world and seeing sunlight again. That's really death to her. So, when I'm looking at the whole dynamic, and then there has been several prosecutorial, issues here, and it's, some real serious issues with jurors. I can't see how this thing is not going to get thrown out at some point in time, or the state's got to drop it or something. I just don't see it going all the way, and I don't see her getting the death penalty. I just don't. I cannot.
Even if she gets the death penalty, she will never be put to death.
I agree.
Too many appeal issues.
So when you talk about whether it's ego or not, I think that it's a combination of ego, and he feels he's got to go ahead and do it because he's got to, have justice for the family. Just take them through, just kind of with the Trayvon Martin case here. I mean, the state never really wanted to try it, but this is a little bit different case, but they did it anyway, so they just had the trial. They had to. And the family
and I think this is victim. I think this is victim driven also. I think Juan Martinez really wants to do it, but I also think that it's victim driven. But if you got a good prosecutor, they can sit them people down and talk the victims through, putting an end to this thing. But now the victims are whipped into a deal where to not get the death penalty is to lose.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be, and you know what, the victims are never going to win until they have some sort of forgiveness in their heart for what happened or whatever. I mean, they're never going to win. They're never going to feel good about this.
Never.
And think about this: the death penalty. She gets the death penalty. Okay, there's going to be dozens of last minute reprieves for her. So the victims are all on their edge, waiting to go watch Jody get executed and boom, and then it's postponed for another 3 months, and I mean, it's a bigger nightmare for the victims than it is anybody else.
Mm-hmm. And Susan, I remember last year we spoke about this, and you said that Travis wasn't a perfect angel, right? In your opinion, he didn't deserve to die, obviously, but the fact that he kept getting his booty call. Aphrodite Jones also said that to me. That she was so mentally fucked up that from being deceived by. What's your opinion? What were you telling me? In terms
I agree with you. When I think of Travis, he was not a perfect angel. I mean, he played right into the whole sexual fantasy stuff. He loved it. He used her. She let him use herself. I mean, it was just a very toxic sexual relationship, and he was, intoxicated by it. He was a kind of guy that, was told that he couldn't have sex until he got married. And I think when you tell people they can't do something until they're married, it just increases those cravings that much more. And he was intoxicated by her. And she knew that she was the one that kind of held on to that, secret, like potion. And she used it. And she knew exactly how she'd be able to get his attention. So, but at the same time, I mean, he did say something. We heard it. It wasn't just, that's how I feel. I mean, I've heard the videos myself, the things that he called her. So, I mean, he had a very depraved mind. And so I think that he just drove her nuts. She was the wrong personality. She had a very addictive personality, and she was very, what do I call, passive aggressive, and you got to a certain point where she was very jealous, and she just cracked, and she just was. If nobody can have him, I mean, if he wants that girl, I'm going to make sure that he is not going on that trip, and I'm going to do everything to make sure that doesn't happen. So
and that's second-degree murder, and that's what they should have went with.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay,
I had a custody evaluator once tell me that 10s very rarely hook up with 1s, meaning if one of them's really screwed up, they're probably both screwed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good point.
No question about it. Very big trial that happened this year. Oscar Pistorius. Let's listen to this, and we'll go on the other side.
In the court affidavit signed on February 19, 2013, Pistorius said he was watching television in bed while Reva Steenkamp practiced yoga after a quiet dinner together. The couple fell asleep sometime after 10 p.m. Pistorius awoke a few hours later. He brought a fan inside the bedroom and was closing the balcony doors when he heard noises from the bathroom. Pistorius feared an intruder had entered. He grabbed his 9mm parabellum from underneath his bed and headed to the bathroom. He shouted at the intruder and yelled at Steenkamp to call the police. Pistorius saw that the bathroom windows were open and heard movement inside the toilet room. He was too scared to switch the light on. He fired 4 shots at the toilet room door. He screamed for Steenkamp again, but there was no response. He then moved backwards out of the bathroom. He reached the bedroom and found Steenkamp was not in bed. Pistorius returned to the bathroom and called Steenkamp's name. He tried to enter the toilet room, but it had been locked. He returned to the bedroom, opened the balcony doors, and screamed for help. Pistorius put on his prosthetic limbs, ran back to the bathroom, and tried to kick the toilet door open. The lights were switched on at this point. He then grabbed a cricket bat from the bedroom and smashed the toilet door. A panel broke off, and Pistorius found a key on the floor. He used it to open the door. Steenkamp was slumped over on the toilet. Pistorius carried his girlfriend out of the bathroom and phoned property manager Johan Stander to call an ambulance.
You deserve to know more. ENCA.com.
Dwane Cates, do you think the judge got the verdict right with the Gillum manslaughter?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really strange story, and it was really kind of hard to believe some of the things that they were claiming, and and I think he got it right, and I think the punishment kind of fit the crime, and I think that's one of those cases that turned out probably probably like it should have. I mean, the neighbor hearing the screams before the shots, I mean, things like that seem to just really kind of, try to kind of tip it over.
Susan, what was your thoughts on this long trial based out of South Africa with one judge, a very different style? What was your interpretation of this event?
Well, first of all, I thought it was an unbelievable story. And what I mean by that is it was unbelievable. Because listening to that story and his incredible detail and his emotional responses were not congruent and timely. Everything was off. So for me in deception detection, clearly there were many areas I could have shot holes through his story. One of the things I was concerned about was the extraordinary detail, especially when you are in a very feared time. I mean, unless somebody's gone through a cognitive interview where you're kind of retracting stored information when you've gone through trauma, are you able to remember so many details? But when somebody gives you lots of details and irrelevant information, that's a real concern for me. And again, I'm going to go back to, we had one judge, and she's going based on the facts of the case, but she also, does she really believe, is he a credible witness? And is the story credible? And I don't think that she was able to discern that. I think she wanted to believe that it was not intentional. So I think that, a compromised verdict of manslaughter was fitting.
Yes. Yeah, compromised verdict is definitely where it went. And Dwane, what do you think of the way they do things over there in South Africa? Much different than the U.S. One judge, they refer to her as my lady. What's your thoughts on how they run things out there in South Africa?
I think that if you have proper judges and you have a couple citizens that are there, with them, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, juries do some really strange things. That case that I have on Dateline, the jury thought that beyond a reasonable doubt meant more likely than not. After I spent a half hour with the PowerPoint presentation explaining to them what beyond a reasonable doubt meant. Okay? I mean, they said they had to find him guilty of homicide because I didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it was a suicide. Okay? I mean, they just sometimes don't understand complex legal, it's hard to explain to somebody that even if you're pretty sure my guy did it, and it really looks like my guy did it, you could still find him not guilty because they didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it. Okay? They don't apply the proper burdens. They don't apply the, and it's a struggle to you got to find a balance of trying to explain to a jury, but you don't want to insult them and get it down to too elementary of a level. But it's really hard to get 8 or 12 people to figure out what's going on. I mean, it really is. And in this case, if I'd have tried this case to the judge, I would have wanted the judge would have come back in 5 minutes with a ruling. But a jury was out 6 days and came up with the wrong answer.
Yeah, you would definitely
based on the wrong standard.
Here in the U.S. Go a different way. O.J. Simpson, in particular, I think would have went a different way if that was just a judge with the clear facts that they had to work with. This is the biggest story, and it's going on. I think the magic number is 25. And Susan, I want you to listen to this alleged victim and tell me if you think she's credible, and let's talk on the other side.
So you said that he drugged and assaulted you. You said multiple times.
Yes.
Right? You were a teenager, an
Yes.
aspiring actress. What do you believe happened?
Well, there were several occasions that I woke up out of a very confused state, not in my clothes. There was an occasion at his brownstone in New York City where I had gone for dinner and had one glass of wine with dinner. There were staffers there. The house was mingling with people. And before I knew it, I was with my head over the toilet, throwing up, and he was holding my hair out of my face while I threw up, and I was in a white T-shirt and my panties, and he was looming over me in a white robe. Mm-hmm.
And so you were at his house at a dinner party, or were you there to be with him?
I was there alone, and he had been mentoring me and grooming me. Mm-hmm. I'm from Denver, Colorado, and when I was 17, my agent introduced me to him to groom me, to mentor me, to get me ready for show business, and part of that was bringing me to New York City.
Did he ever make advances towards you when you weren't, because you believe that you were drugged, when you weren't drugged, did he make advances towards you?
It was a very controlling and manipulative environment. It was very, very controlled, very isolated, and there were twisted things. There were telltale signs.
But nothing overt.
There was something pretty overt in Reno, Nevada, but by that time I was very much under control and under his thumb. And I don't recall that there were drugs involved in that.
After the initial time you spent, you said Reno, Nevada. You also went to, I believe, Atlantic City.
Yes.
And you put yourself in a position to be close to him again. What was that? Naivete? Was that youth? Why would you do that?
I would say that is, it's so many different things. Victims of sexual assault go through so many different things. I was young. I was in New York City. He and my agent were subsidizing my housing and my acting classes, and my job was to focus on acting, do what I was told, stay on the straight and narrow. And when things started to happen with him, I couldn't go to my agent. I was terrified of her, and I was terrified of him, and he would say things, if I started to ask questions, or I would get, you know, the confusion from the drugs, and I'd be asking questions, he'd say, well, you were drunk. And I would say, well, I wasn't drunk, but I can't let my agent know I was, you know, in that position. I'm supposed to be working hard in New York.
How do you think he drugged you? Do you have any idea? No?
I never saw any drugs, but I would wake up completely confused, half-dressed, and knowing that my body had been touched without my permission.
Your allegations taken seriously.
Yes.
And it wasn't until a comedian recently talked about it, and this is, you know, some time later, almost 30 years later.
Actually, no. I've been speaking out publicly and trying to have the story believed and heard since 2004.
Do you think it's been taken seriously enough?
It's starting to. I'm really glad now. It's a relief to know that the critical masses are starting to finally pay attention. It's been a long, hard, lonely, dark road.
You've never taken legal action, though.
I didn't. No, I didn't. And I didn't. Why didn't I? Well, I tried. I told my agent one time. She did not believe me. A friend of mine in '89 took me to an attorney. He laughed me out of the office. At that point, nobody would believe me. He was Dr. Huxtable. He was America's dad. Everybody loved him. I loved him. I wanted him to be my dad. And nobody believed me. And I was so broken down at that point and had gone through so much of having my mind completely manipulated. When I got kicked out of New York City, they put me back to Denver with the clothes on my back. My things got locked in the apartment. I had to sue to get my things back. I regrouped, came back to New York, and I just said, I just have to put this away. I have to just get on with my life.
Cosby, through his attorneys, has repeatedly denied sexually assaulting anyone. Now, this is according to the Washington Post. A representative for Bill Cosby did not return multiple calls and emails from Washington Post staff for comments on Barbara's op-ed. Today, we spoke to a representative of Bill Cosby's who didn't want to address the resurfacing of the allegations.
Okay, Susan, two things. First of all, do you find this lady that you just heard credible, A, and B, or what do you think of this whole gigantic story that blew up this year?
I think it's a credible story. When I'm listening to her, again, her responses are very thoughtful. I feel that when she said that he he was grooming her for this position. Well, he was not only grooming her for the position, he was actually grooming her as a sexual predator. And when she gave very visual graphics, that's what we call visually remembered. And she vividly remembered certain aspects of it, but she never really said that he sexually abused her because she doesn't remember that. She just knows at the aftermath, how she was left and felt. And a woman knows what that feels like. If your body just feels differently. So the whole story, when you've got 20 different people coming forward, more and more coming out, similar stories being drugged, I think that he found an MO that worked, and he uses power and influence. And here's the thing is that I would really caution people. When you're looking at sexual predators, today's sexual predators, even this guy, he's apparently started this a long time ago, but they don't look like sexual predators. They are people that they trust, and that's their persona, it's their personality and their charisma, and they build trust with people. And that's what it's very scary because they can be like the Bill Cosbys, and they can be even police officers or teachers or people that are next door neighbors, people that you entrust. So here's the thing. A narcissist is someone that you would invite them into your home within 30 seconds of meeting them. And that's Bill Cosby.
Wow. And Dwane, have you ever seen so many people come out and if you were representing Mr. Cosby, first of all, what would you do? Would you tell him to issue a statement? How would you go about this? And what's your personal feelings on this?
I would craft a statement. I would craft a statement to put out there. But, one thing you have to understand with so many people coming forward, there's going to be some of them that are just making it up. There are going to be some. Okay, even if assuming what some of them are saying are true, because it's a money train, and again, that's going to be part of the defense is, that they're just after money, and the ones that are just after money could ruin it for the ones that really deserve to have justice. The real ones, and when you get a pool where some are real and some are not, then I don't know on statute of limitations where these acts took place if there can be criminal charges. Okay, I don't know if statute of limitations if they can bring civil lawsuits. Maybe and most likely the best they're going to be able to do is ruin his career. But Bill Cosby probably has enough money in the bank that he doesn't really have to. That he really doesn't have to have a career, and if I was his attorney,
but his legacy is gone.
I would, and if I was his attorney, I would tell him to, you disappear into the background, and stay out of the public eye, and these things blow over. And we're not talking. He's got to put up 2, 3. He's got to get.
We're talking 25 women that we got on according to this. Just the accusation, though, has tarnished his legacy, Susan. Don't you think?
Well, that's the problem with these kind of crimes, is that you can ruin people with just an accusation. I've had people that I've gotten out of jail. I've got the charges dismissed because they were innocent, but they spent 9 months in jail being called a child molester. When they got out, they were